Hi, and tell us a little bit about yourself, what your name is, and tell us about your artwork.
Well, my name is Jackie Bailey Labovitz, and these are all native plants taken in the forest. The portfolio is called Understory because they all grow in the understory, which means they grow under the canopy in the forest. They're all taken in natural light, and they're all native plants. The collection began because Thomas Jefferson was known to have 12 native plants at Monticello and in the gardens, and so I went out to find those 12 plants, and in the process found a lot more plants. And the lady slippers, the pink and yellow lady slippers, were on the list. They're orchids. They're very hard to find. They can't be transplanted. They have a fungal relationship and with the tree and the soil, and so those would be the hardest to find. So I started out and hiking, really looking for those, and they were on his list. So I figured if I could find those, I could find the other 10 plants, because actually the yellow lady slipper was also on the list. It's also a native orchid, and so that's how the whole portfolio started. And I had been to Costa Rica to learn to raise native butterflies.
Oh, wow.
And so I was fascinated with the understory and the rainforest.
Yeah.
I Googled the North American rainforest, and there's no such thing, and nobody had really done anything with the understory.
That's amazing.
So I just continued to collect specimens, but they are photographs taken with a very shallow depth of field. The background is just thrown out of focus. You can see here, this one grows on a slope, and so there's other vegetation. It drops down, and that's all leaf litter back here. So most people think that the backgrounds are made up, but they're not. If you look at the brown ones, the ones with the brown backgrounds is leaf litter, and that's before the vegetation comes out. So that's why that's all brown. And then by the time the spring beauties come out, you can see these grow in mass. If you look carefully, you can see some others back in the background. So that's green. Here you can see I'm shooting up into the trees, and those dark lines are tree trunks.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
they're all they're backgrounds that are thrown out of focus. I'm shooting with a 300 millimeter lens, which means I'm going to have less than an inch that's going to be in focus. So I'm choosing exactly what I want in focus, and then I have to estimate how far the background is in order to get the background out of focus. So then I have to find a perfect specimen. It took me 4 years to get this picture. This is on the Thomas Jefferson list, and it's named for Thomas Jefferson. It's now in the collection at the Thomas Jefferson Foundation in Charlottesville. And so that's how the collection started. I currently have a show at the U.S. Botanic Garden, which went up January 22nd and will be there until October. My show at the National Academy of Sciences opens in June and will be there till November.
Tell us, Jackie, how you get these photographs. I mean, what's the procedure that you take to get them?
Well, it's very high-tech. Mostly I wear a windsuit. I'm completely covered from top to bottom because I lie flat on my stomach, and I clean everything from around the plant, what I call grooming the area. I start looking for the leaves way before the plant blooms. I tag a tree close to where the plant is going to bloom, I hope, and I go back over and over to that same site. In the case of this yellow lady slipper, it's very waxy here, and so I needed to shoot it just before the sun came up or just as it comes up so that I don't get a big highlight. And I got there about 5 to 8 minutes too late, and I had to hike because I had groomed it the previous day.
And how long did it take you to find this one?
Well, it took me a year or two, actually, to find one. And then it took me a lot longer to find one that's isolated because you've got to have the background clear. You can't have a whole bunch of them all together because I'm trying to just isolate one perfect specimen. So I had, the day before, moved all the logs. I'd raked it all out and put down weed barrier so that there weren't any sticks or any kind of other plant life in the middle ground. and estimated how far the background was to throw it out of focus. So when I got there, it was a little too late. So now here I am. It's all groomed and ready to go, and now the light is too bright. So I just would hike down the mountain, come back and check it, because two things could happen. One is somebody could come along and think it's really beautiful and cut it down.
How big is this in real life?
This one was probably about 13 or 14 inches. This is actually a lot larger than most of the plants that I shoot. So I would say this one was about 13 or 14 inches.
The lady slipper, the pink lady slipper, how big was that?
This was probably somewhere between 8 and 12 inches.
That is, okay.
I would have liked for it to have been a little bit taller. They do get a little bit taller. But I wanted the saturated color, and the day that I hiked in, after having gone 4 other times, hiking 5 miles each way up and back, it rained that morning, so I could get that saturated green and the saturated pink, which you couldn't get. It's just like today. It's been raining for 4 days, and you almost have to put on your sunglasses to look at the foliage. Well, that particular morning, it had rained, and it had rained all night, so I knew that the trunks were going to be saturated, the plant, and the background. So that's why that appears in that really rich green like today after raining for 3 or 4 days.
So you really have to search for these flowers. I mean, it's not like just going down to a local flower store and picking a flower and then coming back and photographing it. And there's a real art to what you do to find these flowers.
Yes, there's an art to finding it there, and there's a science to finding it, because some of them close and open every day. So, for instance, this one here only blooms for 24 to 48 hours. I saw the leaves 2 years in a row before I ever saw it bloom. And even when it blooms, it doesn't open until about 11 o'clock in the morning. And so, therefore, that's the worst time to shoot, particularly a white flower. But the petals are so tenuously attached, the first wind or the first rain, they just drop off. But so I found the leaves 2 years in a row. Finally, I found it blooming, but that third year, it was still too bright. And then the fourth year, actually a cloud came over, and I was able to shoot it as it just started to come back up. Because at 12 o'clock, it's like a whirlybird. It's totally parallel to the sun, so you don't have enough definition to actually see the petals.
Do you put any of your photographs through programs like Photoshop and enhance them, or is this exactly what you saw through the lens?
Well, everybody asks me that question. They do go through Photoshop, but there's the same thing that you would have done when I used to do black and white photography. You dodge, you burn, you do all the things that you would traditionally do. You have a few more options in that if there were a big white blop right here, you could actually clean it up. So I do clean up the backgrounds, and I do clean up the plants, because they grow so close to the ground that when it rains really hard, all of it splatters up on it. But I think of it as I do my children. And that is what I want mustard or ketchup on their face if I were going to do a lasting portrait of them.
Right, exactly.
So I do clean it up, and so they have been cleaned up.
Okay.
But as you can see, they are taken in their natural environment. But if there is something that is in the way, I will spot it out. They're all in Virginia. Because I shoot in natural light, I have to know where the light is every day. So you can't just check the radio or the TV and find out what time sunrise is or sunset, because if it's down in the valley, the sun comes over that mountain at a particular time. It also goes down at a particular time, which has nothing to do with when it comes up or goes down on an ocean. So you have to go in and find the plant and figure out what time of day the light is going to be there and what kind of light you're going to get. You also have to know whether it's going to open and close. I wasted a lot of time on the blue-eyed grass, only to find that it is not open until 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh.
And so if you know the behavior of the plant, it makes it a lot easier. Some of them do stay open all the time. Some of them only last for 24 to 48 hours. So you have to know the subject.